All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I got 10:32 here. My name is Tom Hughes. I work for the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, but also the current president for the National Hazard Mitigation Association. I want to welcome you all to the National Hazard Mitigation Association Annual Practitioners Annual Meeting, sponsored and supported virtually by the Natural Hazard Center, the University of Colorado Boulder. We couldn't all be together in Boulder. I wish we could, as you all do. But I would like to, we get to network while we're out there. So if you could, please put your name and your organization and email. And if you want to put a phone number in there in the chat as well, so that we can, maybe make some friends here over the course of the day. This has been a very busy year for NHMA as we're hopefully pulling out of the global pandemic. And as you'll hear from Annie Vesta after me, the vice president of NHMA, following my comments. As president, I wanted to personally thank all of our executive board and our operations manager, Ed Hecker, and the past and present interns from George Washington University that have assisted us for putting in the time this year in our transformational movements on expanding the organization, assisting our NHMA membership and providing current and future needs in resilience, mitigation, recovery needs at all levels, to include the revamping of the National Hazard Mitigation Association's website. Some great news for former NHMA president and NHMA board member Ed Thomas, as he is an awardee and was recognized for his technical support to the American Bar Association this year, and will be so recognized at this year's Jefferson B. Fordham Awards luncheon on August 5th in Chicago. Also of note, the Community Resilience Handbook that Ed worked on with George Blaine Huff Jr. and Nancy McNabb. It's now available wherever you purchase books, online or at your local bookstore. A very good read if you don't have that on your read list. NHMA also wants to thank Laura Algio, Tom Glenn, and Vince Brown for their continued support under the Cooperative Technical Partners Program there at FEMA, which lends some support to assist the organization on, but not limited to, risk communication and outreach initiatives of our organizations. Additionally, professional academic shout outs to Millersville, Clemson, Jacksonville State, Oklahoma State, and Arizona State University partners with our webinar series and our involved frank discussions this year on such topics as diversity, equity, inclusion, supporting underserved communities, and risk assessment and data exchanges. And it is a must to give much love and admiration to Dr. Lori Peak and the Natural Hazard Centers team, and work with NHMA in so many ways, to include this year's Natural Hazard Centers workshop sessions and supporting the session today. NHMA appreciates the engagement supporting the NHC Advisory Committee needs as well. What an amazing and caring group you guys all are. And once again, you delivered a superb 2022 conference. You guys keep raising the bar, and we thank you. Lastly, wanted to send out a challenge to our membership. NHMA is embarking on a new governance structure that is going to need folks to assist in cross-sector committees that will need leaders and supporters to really drill down into tasks and provide feedback and work products as needed by the executive board, the operations section, and for ultimately you, the members. Mitigation, recovery, resilience spaces are changing rapidly, and it is a challenge and sometimes very frustrating to keep up, but I applaud you all for staying in the fight to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table. Provide the best future planning support so that community leaders can make the best decisions dealing with climate change. And yes, we can now say it: climate change, climate change, climate change. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that if you are in this virtual session and you're not yet a NHMA member or need to bring your membership current, please do so while we are all together today. You can go to our website, and Annie will be talking about that, but very easy. We need you to sign up to assist us in moving the needle forward in the mitigation, recovery, and resilience spaces. Let's celebrate today by listening, participating with our great lineup of speakers, as I know you all will. You've never been silent in the face-to-face or virtual settings in the past, and with us, and we anticipate the same today. So please participate. I truly think you'll be excited by the items that we are currently working on and what will be discussed. So without further ado, I yield the mic to my fantastic friend and colleague, the always exciting Annie Vest, our NHMA Vice President. Madam Vice President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. I'm trying to get my technology working today. And so I have pulled up our website and a few other things, but First and foremost, I really just want to reiterate all of the gratitude that Tom shared. NHMA has just come so far in the last decade since our inception in 2008. And for those of you that don't know, we have been around that long. So a little bit of backstory of my own personal journey with NHMA. I began in this profession as a young mitigator with the state of Nebraska Department of Emergency Management, actually, and then found myself in Oklahoma working with Ron Flanagan. And Ron Flanagan is one of the founding members of the National Hazard Mitigation Association. And the organization really began over a handshake after an association of state floodplain managers meeting where Ron and Alessandra Geralaman and other names that you might know, Ann Patton, others came together and decided that there wasn't really a common place for mitigation practitioners. And it was very focused on either you were a floodplain manager, you were an emergency manager, you were a planner, but there wasn't a space for everybody to really come together. And that's how NHMA was born, and that's where we've grown from. And a few years ago, when Tom was first becoming president and brought me back as one of the members of the board of directors, Tom really started to champion getting NHMA back in this national limelight of a space where we could advocate and be available and provide training and provide resources to local communities to make mitigation accessible. And that's really why we're here. Since Tom's been president and then my assuming the role as vice president, we've been able to bring together a new board of directors that have some of our older board members that have been around from the beginning to keep us grounded, and some new members that keep us innovative and keep us exciting. And with that, last year, our board did vote to officially change our name from the Natural Hazard Mitigation Association to legally change that name to the National Hazard Mitigation Association. Our intent is to really stand up as an organization and be the voice and really stand side by side with the other organizations in this space as we fight these generational challenges that are in front of us. We don't take the challenges ahead lightly. Mitigation is a space that some of us have been in for decades. Some may be new to mitigation as it's really become the focus, but ultimately it's everybody's responsibility. And we encourage your partnership, we encourage your participation, and we need to come together in these times to find solutions. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and just give you a few updates before our plenary panel, just to show you a little bit more how you can remain engaged. This is certainly one of the ways, is to continue to participate in this forum, but ultimately we want to continue that engagement year round. So we did update our website. If I can share my screen, let's see if technology is with me today. Here we go. Let's see, share. Can everybody see this website? Thumbs up from Tom Hughes. Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So this is our new website. It is really user-friendly. It has the flow and the feel of scrolling to find the things you're looking for. So if you just kind of keep scrolling, you can find all the information that you need. We are a 501c3, so if you are so kind and you want to give us a donation, if you are a business that wants to sponsor us, any of those things, we appreciate in advance any of those donations. And then how to contact us as well. Anything that you want to know about membership is on this website. We have 3 committees that are becoming very active. Our policy and advocacy committee, for example, just met this past Friday. So if there's something that really piques your interest today and you want to remain involved, this is a great place to start. The other thing that I want to share is just one brief slide. I'm going to stop this share and start another that gives you a bigger overview of NHMA and some of the things that we are currently working on. And sharing my screen, here is this slide, and you can see this, and I'm going to view it. All right, so Just very briefly, again, we were established in 2008, and for those that aren't aware, we are directly funded through FEMA headquarters through a cooperating technical partnership. And so we have some scope of work items that we work on that are grant funded through FEMA, and we're so appreciative of that long-term partnership that we've been able to have with them. And some of those things that you might be more familiar with are some of our legacy programs with the NHMA, our disaster risk reduction curriculum, which we've deployed from coast to coast, which really provides training material for practitioners. We have our Resilient Neighbors Network that we're currently working to expand. And then we are also working to develop a credential for the mitigation practitioner, which you'll hear themes of this throughout various presentations today. And then finally, we do offer an NHMA webinar series, and that's where in partnership with Millersville University. And those webinars that we've hosted to date are available on our website if you're interested in going back and looking at them. Additionally, we have several ongoing partnerships. So you're here today. We host the Mitigation Practitioners Workshop annually. We do hope that next year we'll be in person and you'll be with us. And please do tell us how we can improve upon, and if you want to be part of this workshop next year. We have our ongoing partnerships with the various universities. And then we've recently began to really actively collaborate with other groups, between the International Association of Emergency Managers, Mitigation and Climate Adaptation Caucus on legislative issues, to the National Emergency Management Association and their Resilience Committee. We are looking for additional partnerships, but we're actively engaging with these other organizations because we do recognize that there's power in numbers when all of these experts come together. Finally, in some pilot efforts. And so we have been working over the years to really gain traction in this space, but also become more than just this grassroots training organization, but also come up with some innovative solutions to the issues that we face. And so with that, we are currently collaborating with Clemson University and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers headquarters on pilot efforts for a resilient watershed initiative in the Savannah River Basin. We're also working quite a lot with FEMA Region 2 and Clemson University for an equity sprint and really looking into resilient engagement hubs. And you'll hear more about this concept today. And then finally, you'll hear from Rachel Riley today, Dr. Riley, or Dr. Melanie Gall and Rachel Riley with Arizona State University and with the Southern Climate Impact Planning Program on our effort to improve hazard mitigation planning via a NOAA RESA project. So we have sessions today on hazard mitigation planning and some of the pilot efforts that are out there right now. Rachel Riley will be speaking about the SCIP and NOAA funded pilot, and then myself and Laura Douay with the Florida Department of Emergency Management will be speaking about really what this means to improve hazard mitigation planning. And so all in all, we have a tremendous amount of work that's ongoing, and we hope that you'll be part of it. And we hope that you appreciate some of the things that you're hearing today, and that if you are so eager to join us, we welcome that participation. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share. Before I turn it over to Mike Sprayberry and the opening panel, I do want to go ahead and just take a look really briefly and give some insights on the agenda for all of you. And so I'm going to pull that up next here if I can find the right window. Nope, can't be found. So our opening plenary session, I am incredibly excited for, will be moderated by Mike Sprayberry, who is the former director of the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management, among other things. And our panelists include Dr. Daniel Kanuski, who is the former resilience administrator for FEMA headquarters, Lori Showman, who was wonderful, and she is with Enterprise Community Partners, and then Simone Davis. And I want to give a little bit of context on the reason for bringing together this group of panelists. Dr. Dan Kanuski and Lori Schumann make a lot of sense to discuss policy initiatives. And it's always interesting when we have these workshops that we have a lot of our national experts, but NHMA is such a grassroots organization, and I wanted to make sure that when we were convening this panel that we had representation of community. And so Simone Davis is the founder of Black Towns Municipal Management, and she is the former town manager for Tallahassee, Oklahoma, which she'll let everybody know more about Tallahassee and those experiences. She is a gem. She has the real ability to give you guys some insight and our audience some insight on what it means to really be resilient as a community. One of the things that we make so many assumptions on in this profession is what communities need and what they should do and what they are doing and why they aren't doing things. But what sometimes we fail to recognize the real reasons behind those things, that maybe they're not mitigating because maybe for them resilience is much more close held than forward thinking. Maybe it's something that they don't have current town charters. Maybe it's something that they don't have planning and zoning. Maybe it's more of an immediate need than the big innovation that we're pushing on them. And so I wanted to make sure that we had community representation in that panel, and I'm so looking forward to that discussion. Very quickly, just going through the rest of the day, we have the role of the private sector, some awesome panelists there. Julie K. Roberts has just recently stood up a new organization related to the private sector and emergency management. And so you'll hear from she and Jill Jameson, the very brilliant Jill Jameson, in a presentation that she has to give. At that same time, myself and, as I mentioned, Laura DeWay will co-present. Laura is the current Mitigation Bureau Chief with the Florida Department of Emergency Management. And so she'll give some insights on where they've come and where they're going with their mitigation planning in Florida and how they got to become a state that gets to oversee their own mitigation plans. Go ahead and keep scrolling down. Finally, the last breakout sessions, we'll talk about collaboration with public universities, which is something that NHMA is very much focusing on, and our disaster risk reduction innovative approaches to this with Dr. Alessandra Gerolman and a esteemed panel as well. And finally, we'll end the day with Fred Malik from the Insurance Institute for Building and Home Safety, who will discuss a wide array of information about building codes and other efforts. And then in the day with the social hour, just kind of mulling through all of these topics and digesting them together and figuring out what that next step is. And that's kind of usually my favorite part of the day. So with that, I see Mike Sprayberry turned on his camera, which means that he'll talk for me for 10 minutes because I didn't realize I'd have a full 30, very honestly, to this whole group. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure, let's see, do we have our, Mike, if I turn this over to you, can you talk a little bit and introduce your panel? I don't